Traveler expectations have changed. There's simply no denying that. And as many of you will personally know, myself included, what matters now as a traveler may not have mattered or been a priority pre-pandemic all those months ago. So knowing this and having said that, what can operators in the industry do to ensure that they're ready for these new expectations? Pack your bags, everyone, and let's get ready for another episode of Anyline, Anytime. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new podcast episode. I'm your host, Mark Babin, and as always, thank you so much for being with us on this episode. It's so great to see all of you with me for this very exciting topic. Now, as you'll know from that introduction and of course the title of this podcast, today we are diving back into the world of travel and tourism to discuss how businesses and operators are adapting to the new and evolved travel standards that have hit the entire globe almost all at the same time. Now, I'm joined on this podcast this week by a very good friend of mine, Lindsey Epperly, the owner and operator at Epperly Travel. They're an award-winning travel agency based in Atlanta, Georgia, that focuses on luxury travel and has a very close relationship with travel providers and hotel operators around the world. Lindsey, thank you so much for carving out this time. It's great to have you on the episode. I know business must be absolutely on fire, so I really appreciate the time you've carved out and very much looking forward to this conversation. So thanks for being here.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much for having me, Mark. It's so fun to catch up, but specifically to talk about what a wild ride this year has been in the travel industry and what we're continuing to see.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really looking forward to some of these trends, but like you said, a wild ride. Absolutely. So again, yeah, thank you for being here and really looking forward to some of your insights here today. So I thought we could start the conversation today by speaking about the main topic and probably one that you've probably seen more than most and more than anyone, that's changing traveler expectations. I think it's probably fair to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if we look at now versus pre-pandemic, we're certainly dealing with a different kind of traveler now, aren't we?
We sure are. We're dealing with typically more intrepid travelers, ones that are willing to understand the fluidity and the flexibility that is absolutely necessary to travel these days. And we can tell our travelers pretty early on if they are not adjusting to those expectations, they're probably not going to have the best time in the world. Travel prior to the pandemic was pretty formalized, and short of there being a hurricane or things that are outside of our control, of course, things are always going wrong. But for the most part, you could predict a good bit. And right now, you can predict very little other than the unpredictability of it all. So the flexibility here is key.
Okay, so if there's one thing to anticipate, it's that things will change.
Things will always change, yes, and on a dime.
Okay, so there's not, and I guess over the last year, there hasn't been so unknown that people haven't really known what to adapt for. If there's more change coming, even now we're kind of sitting here going, we think we're out of everything, but maybe not. We don't really know. So I guess from the traveler perspective on that side, are they kind of conservatively moving forward? Are they just acting like everything's back to normal, or how is the traveler acting?
Yeah, I would say you will get a million different opinions on that question, depending on which traveler you ask, right?
Okay.
So we work with hundreds, if not thousands of travelers during this time, and it's our job to really study this ever evolving landscape. So we're looking at trends as much as you can even consider them trends and seeing what could be predictable. And again, that goes back to, well, mostly it's the unpredictability of it all. So being able to talk to travelers individually, that's a large part of what Epperly Travel does. Our advisors really work to get to know the travelers. So we're asking them, point blank, what are you comfortable with? What is your perception of safety? Because that is different for every single person. Some people are saying, I'm ready to get back out there. I feel safe. I'm vaccinated. Here's what I'm ready to do. Some people are saying, I just don't even know if I'm ready to get on an airplane. That doesn't feel safe to me yet. So it
Okay.
just runs the gamut. And our job is really to navigate the level of that person's comfort to the right destination and the right fit for them.
Okay, so if that's what the traveler is kind of going in and knowing the main changes that travelers have now, and it's kind of all over the place, like you're saying, what would you say from an operations side and for the operators and the service providers, what items are business critical right now that they need to adapt to or they need to pay more attention to right now?
Yeah, it's a great question because I really feel like setting expectations is the most important thing we can all be doing. And so, as a travel agency, we are typically working very closely with our hotels, our tour operators, our airlines, and we're trying to understand on a day to day basis. What are you seeing in your destination? What's actually happening behind the scenes? When our traveler arrives at your hotel, are they expecting what things were prior to the pandemic, which always the answer is no. So what's different now? Is it just that you don't have housekeeping every day, or is it that half of your restaurants are not going to be open? We need to know to set those expectations. And I think what's difficult for operators is that sometimes they don't even know. If we're asking this for a trip that's coming up in 3 months, we're asking it way too early. So if we have a traveler who's willing to be flexible, they've booked this trip for a couple of months out, then we're asking those questions again right before they travel so we can set the right expectations. And again, if they have the mindset of, I'm just ready to go somewhere and I know that it's going to look different than it would have pre-pandemic, we can set those expectations more realistically the closer it is to their travel dates. And that way no one is concerned, immediately freaking out, trying to change course, unless it is some sort of situation where it's like a tightening up of government restrictions, which is another thing that I like to let people know. Just because a place is loosened up does not mean it won't tighten up again. So it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
Yeah. And I guess on that, I'm just curious, are people booking more short term then? Are they looking a bit longer out? And then how does that impact how you set those expectations?
Yeah, all of the above.
Okay.
So what we're seeing, right? Like my answer is yes to everything, right?
Everything. Yeah.
So we did see the huge surge of pent up demand, which has been really awesome, and it's reminded us as travel advisors why we do what we love. Right, we're able to exercise our passion of sending people all across the globe again. And so what we've seen trend wise is a lot of short term bookings. So typically it's the clients that maybe they just got vaccinated and we're ready to go and we want to go before anything major changes. So we want to go in 2 weeks. I mean, we've got really last minute bookings.
Wow.
The problem with that is that compression for 2021 is just astronomical. So a lot of those trips from 2020 didn't just get canceled, they got postponed.
Mhm.
So more was on the books already for 2021. And we're going to see the same thing going into 2022 as well. It's just there's less availability. So if people are booking closer in, we're kind of up against what's left. So that oftentimes is leading individuals to say, all right, I'm still ready to go on that trip 2 weeks from now. Send me wherever you can send me. But the place that I want to go, I want to go ahead and reserve that for 2022. So that's why there's going to be another compression issue in 2022. So we're really encouraging our clients to think about your bucket list, think about what you want to accomplish long term. Let's go ahead and start getting that space, but then we'll send you wherever we have availability short term. And they're just happy to have a vacation for the most part.
So go for the quality places rather than maybe 5 trips in the next year. Where do you really want to go and focus on that?
Yes, yeah, and we have a really cool technology actually through Virtuoso through our consortia called
Mhm.
Wanderlist, and that allows our travelers to sit down and essentially like go through this quiz, but it's so much more than just a quiz to understand what is at the top of that list, and then that fills us in as advisors to say, okay. Here's like the shoulder season for that destination. So you're getting a good bang for your buck. You're still getting decent weather. You're not having to fight crowds. And that's something we have to watch as well is the idea, our biggest problem prior to the pandemic was over tourism, right?
Mhm.
And then it just immediately reverted to under tourism. So we're kind of having to watch that. What's it going to look like as things come back?
Interesting. Okay. Okay. So people need to be thinking ahead, but then yeah, I guess because that compression, like you said, that could be a massive issue. It's going to bring us right back to that original problem. But now we have a bunch of people in a space where maybe they're not used to being a bunch of people. And then it's going to create more issues, I would imagine, right?
It's a domino effect.
Yeah.
Yes. And also we sit right here as we have the staffing issues too.
Hmm.
So as companies are ramping back up and they're hiring on, typically it's new talent that they're hiring on. So there's a training curve that's going on right now too. Now I very much hope by 2022 that is worked out. I kind of liken it to a new hotel opening, which Mark, I know you have
Yeah.
familiarity with,
Hmm.
but you kind of give that 3 to 6 months to work out its kinks. And I'm kind of looking at each new destination and hotel as it's turning its lights back on, as the destination's borders are opening. That's what we're looking at. And so those more intrepid travelers might say, I'm willing to go the week that it opens. But the ones who say, maybe I'd like a little bit more stability and predictability, let's book that one a little bit further out.
Got it. Okay. Okay. So that's how it changes. No, that's really good to know. So knowing these changes in how travelers are expecting to travel or their standards, I guess, when they travel, and from the conversation you've had with operators specifically, How are they reacting and adapting to these changes? Are we seeing them take a more minimalist, conservative, perhaps more traditional approach that we see operators take? Or are you seeing the flip? Are you seeing a lot of proactivity and bold moves by operators right now?
Yeah, good question. I think for the past couple of months, we've seen a stabilization of it.
Mhm.
I think in the middle of everything, so I'd say maybe kind of like October, November of last year, we were seeing more and more bold moves and more restoring confidence in travel again, right? So a lot of that had to do with operators being more flexible on their terms and conditions. And that to me is the name of the game right now.
Mhm.
You will still not get a traveler to sign on the dotted line if you're doing something that is non-refundable. And a large part of what we are looking at as advisors is the financial responsibility for our clients. And so it's understanding what is flexible. So if they did get last minute to a trip that someone wound up testing positive or the destination itself closed its borders, whatever that's going to look like, flexibility is key for what they have booked and what kind of dollars they have on the line. So once most of the operators got that under control and they better assessed what are people comfortable with, I haven't seen quite as many bold moves lately, to be honest. I
Mhm.
think it's more they're rolling with the punches. Now that travelers are coming, I mean, there's not listen, like people were thinking at the beginning of this that they would get insane travel deals, and that's not the case because the hotels are not they're not having to fight to get heads in beds right now.
Yeah.
People are traveling. As soon as a destination opens, I mean, our lines are ringing off the hook. So we are seeing now, granted, there's this whole Delta variant going on right
Mhm.
now, and we are definitely seeing some responses to that, but it's nothing like we saw back in 2020.
Okay, so I guess with kind of riding that wave of change and conservation, I guess when we look at the industry at a whole in both travel and hospitality here, do you still see a gap between what travelers are expecting versus what hotels are able to provide, or is it simply a matter of people just want to go somewhere right now, and that gap maybe isn't as important as it would have been in the past?
Yeah, yeah, very good question. We are definitely seeing a gap. I want to
Okay.
go ahead and address that because we like to be upfront with our travelers. Right now, uh, things cost top dollar. So there oftentimes is the perception of if I'm going to be paying this amount per night, then I'm expecting the absolute best of the best that that hotel has ever had to offer. But the reality is that hotel is still ramping up their staff.
Mhm.
They still have to by whatever their government's rules are. So that might mean only X amount of occupancy in the hotel itself or in the restaurants, or it's outdoor dining, or you have to show a vaccination card to eat indoors. Like it's so different for each and every operator. So there's definitely a gap, but that's when it's really helpful to do your homework or work with a professional like what we do because we're able to set the expectation. And we've had a lot less client issues based on the fact that if we set that expectation up front, they know going into it, all right, this is just the way that this is played right now. It's going to cost a lot of money, but I'm going to get to go on a vacation. I'm really excited about that part. And I think for most people, because they realized how much we took for granted with travel,
Mhm.
right? Like, I mean, no one ever thought we'd see the day that all flights were grounded, domestic and internationally. And so I think for most people who are able to find the silver linings or feel like I don't want to take that for granted again, a lot of our travelers are just super gracious and excited to be back out there.
Okay. So I guess and this was interesting based on what you said earlier, but once we have this compression and resources then are going to be stretched, I guess operators need to start thinking about that now because expectations are going to be even harder to manage when you add extra levels of complexity to travel, I would imagine.
Yeah, and I honestly that's what they're going through right now
Hmm.
too. But I think what they're seeing right now is this is our new normal for at least an extended period of time,
Hmm.
right? Like whoever is thinking we're going to return back to complete normal, you might not travel for another 5 years if that's what you're waiting for. So we're learning how to navigate what it means to travel during a pandemic because we're still in this. And so each of those operators, I think right now is the crucial learning point. So again, it's my hope that within the next few months, those things have the kinks have been worked out to where a hotel knows, all right, this is our protocol if this happens, whether it is a client testing positive or it is a government protocol changing. It's each hotel and each operator kind of has their contingency plans all set. And so they're really right now, what I'm seeing is they're they've either already created those or in their process of creating because it's happening as we speak. So it's just learning to live with this.
Okay. So, but at the same time, I guess operators need to be thinking about it as they always do. We're always thinking about what's next or what can I be jumping on. It's even more vital right now, I think, is kind of what you're saying.
It absolutely is. Yeah, the more we can normalize what we're experiencing right now,
Hmm.
the more we can kind of predict how we can set those traveler expectations in the future, how we can set our prices accordingly too, so that we're understanding if we are providing full service, we're charging for full service. I think right now is just an interesting time in between everything.
Some type of transitional effect.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Very much.
And that actually transitions really well into the next point I wanted to ask. I wanted to kind of switch gears a little bit, but talk about the technology being used in the industries, because I think technology has played a massive role in the last 2 years. It's changed everything from how everything's done, ordering groceries to food to clothing. We've become heavily digitally biased. But when it comes to the travel and hospitality industry specifically, and what innovators and companies are doing to not only help travel and tourism operators get back on their feet, but to help them exceed expectations and to help them manage this massive change that's happening. And I think it's played a massive role in that. But from your experience and from what you've seen personally, or you've heard, or you've spoken to people about, how have you seen technology and new innovation play a role in all of this? How have you seen it, and what's the impact been?
Yeah, yeah, great question. I keep hearing about this thing called Zoom. Have you heard of that
Yeah,
yet?
I think
No,
I've used it
usually,
once or
yeah.
twice. Yeah.
No, that's not gonna be my technology tip. What's funny is we were a very, I'd say, tech savvy or a little bit more virtual friendly agency. That was what we were created to be prior to the pandemic. So Zoom used to be our competitive advantage, and now obviously that's become normal. So it's funny to me in that it kind of forced the world to speed up, so that people are used to now, if we're not able to meet clients face to face, we're able to do it virtually, and that's an expectation now. So prior to it, there's a bit of a learning curve. So we do appreciate what the pandemic has done in terms of teaching everyone the same technology.
Hmm.
But from the industry technology specifically, there's a tool, or I guess it's maybe an app called Sherpa.
Hmm.
And that, when we're talking about setting expectations and the fact that things are changing on a dime, Sherpa is keeping track of all of that in one place for us. So it's a really awesome resource that you can see what are the restrictions and protocols in real time. They're updating constantly because, honestly, Mark, what Antigua's protocol was last week might be different than what it is today. I
I
mean,
can't
it
even
is changing
imagine. Can't even
quickly.
imagine.
Yeah. So what's cool is Sherpa has even been adopted by the travel itinerary app that we use for our clients.
Oh wow.
So we use an app called Axus, AXUS, and it's downloadable on their smartphones. We send it to them, usually a week or so in advance with all their documents in it. So it's all virtual. But now it has the power of Sherpa behind it. So a client can go. I mean, obviously, we're keeping track of everything as
To
well,
the
but
best you
we're
can. Yeah.
as best as we can because we're looking at hundreds of destinations. So the client also has the power in their hands to see, all right, what is my destination doing, and they can keep track of that too. So I think that's a pretty cool technology that's evolved from it.
Yeah. And then I guess from an operational point of view, things at properties or things with travel providers, and special innovations, or at least ideas of technology or things maybe you're seeing in demand from customers that they're asking about. Is there anything along those lines that you're seeing maybe operators need to look into or pay more attention to, solve certain problems?
Yeah, that is a great question. And I wish I had a better answer for you because I feel like if I did, I would be working with you guys to build it. It's just so hard to predict right now.
Hmm.
I mean, I think that for us, again, the biggest challenge is the setting expectations. And that is on such a case by case basis. And I feel like there's not really a technology solution around that. That's the human element that we have to have right now, is someone that is on the ground actively saying, this is what it is. But the reality is, people want that information. They want to feel comfortable.
Hmm.
I do think, actually, as I think about this more and more, so with the Delta variant, right? Because we've got something that is much more contagious. We're seeing that individuals who are vaccinated can still get it. That creates a sense of pause sometimes for individuals who are traveling internationally, especially if they are going to have to test. And this is something we're just talking to our clients about right now. But people's minds are typically set at ease when they understand what would happen if. So a large part of what we're doing is talking to people and saying, all right, worst case scenario, this happens. This is what it looks like for you. And then they can make an informed decision, right? On, do I want to proceed with this risk, or do I want to do something different for my family and whatever we're looking for? So again, it goes back to that comfort level. And we have quite a few clients who are saying, cool, I want to proceed with it. We have a third party company that we can use to, mitigate some of those risks. But it's really maybe better understanding a traveler's risk appetite right now. And so if there's anything around that that could better gauge what a traveler is comfortable with and then match them appropriately, that would be a godsend.
Yeah, I guess for you guys, for agents, and also for operators, because that would help steer their decisions as well, I guess.
Yes, exactly. And no hotel wants us sending someone that is so fearful and they're going to be on edge the entire time, because that's not a vacation for them.
Mhm.
So we don't want to mismatch the expectations with the reality.
Yeah, that's really nicely said. And it actually bridges really well into, I guess, the way that these operators are kind of finding their way through this corn maze. I guess a lot of uncertainty. Everyone's learning a new thing. No one's really gone through anything of this magnitude before. And clearly, every decision that's made has an integral impact on every part of the operation, from dailies to strategic to back of house, everything. And everything's changing so quick. So from your side, where do you see the main challenges and the main opportunities that still exist, that are still to play for operators, and that they should maybe pay attention to more right now? It could have the biggest impact for them. Where do you see these challenges and opportunities?
Yeah, yeah. I think, I don't want to just echo and reiterate the things that we've already said, but going back to the
Hmm.
expectations and
Hmm.
everything. But, maybe circling back around to the conversation about compression, right?
Hmm.
So if you are in a space where that is happening and you're seeing it, I don't ever want clients to feel like we're trying to pressure sell them and we're saying, oh, availability is limited, because that might have been what people felt like they were working with a used car salesman at one point in time, right? We are trying to do that to educate them. So the more our operators are also getting out a similar message and saying, all right, this is why things are top dollar. This is why things are limited. I think that a happy traveler is an educated traveler. And so that's a large part of what we're doing, is we're trying to educate them. But the more that we can have operators backing us in that same narrative and just educating and explaining to them, it's not just all about the pretty pictures. It's about, this is the reality of travel right now, and this is what you need to know. I think there's a huge opportunity there, because I think that I I love our partners. I love our suppliers. I still go on websites and it's pretty pictures and it's a small bar and small font at the top of the screen that says due to COVID-19.
Yeah, of course.
And I get that. Like, we still want to sell the dream. We still want people to be excited about travel. And we do that. And no one is more excited about travel than I am right now. So it's contagious, it's exciting, but we have to set realities and expectations as well. So I think we live in an age of transparency. I
Mhm.
mean, especially this millennial generation that is now driving business. We want transparency. We don't want to feel like things are hiding behind the scenes from us. And so, if we can all kind of adopt this more genuine human quality of, let's be upfront, let's be honest, authentic, and real, then I think you won't just make a one-time client when you're doing that. I think you'll make a client for life, because they'll respect you for that.
Yeah, I was gonna literally, as you were just saying that, I was gonna say how important is transparency in the industry right now? Because traditionally, you're right, we've been minimizing that to the smallest bit of font we could possibly squeeze into the page because it has to be there for some legal reason. But is there an advantage to being truly, I mean, maybe not 100% transparent, let's not change the world all in one day, but to go at least a significant step further for operators, for agencies, for service providers, airlines, hotels, for everyone, just to open that door a little bit more? Is there certain value in that?
Oh, there's a huge value in that. And we saw that pre-pandemic as well. The way that we structured Epperly Travel was off of the basis of transparency, because I saw a lot of travel agencies that were not offering that. They were all about the hidden fees. They were scroll to the bottom,
Hmm.
find out what our dollar amount is,
Plus,
and like
plus,
stack
plus.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it shot to the heart, right? No wonder that travel agents were had a reputation at some point in
Hmm.
their careers of like, do we trust them? Do we not? And so we operated off of a much newer, more transparent model that was cost of service up front. And we found that our clients so appreciated that. And now that we're in this world of pandemic life and what it looks like, the earlier we can tell them what to expect, the better off. And the same thing for our operators. So if you can take it even just a half a step further, any more transparency is really, really valued these days, because the worst thing you can do is kind of have that bait and switch moment, right?
Mhm.
Where they feel like they've been sold the dream and then they're 2 days from leaving and wait, what do you mean all the restaurants are closed and I'm going to have to order room service? Like, and granted, that's not happening everywhere. I'm using some extreme
No, but it
analogies.
affects your stay, and therefore it affects how you view that property, and hotels want you to come back.
Absolutely. And not every hotel is having that struggle. Some are
Mhm.
up and running and it's beautiful and it's wonderful and it's great. But every single thing is different. And so we just want to make sure that that traveler knows what to expect.
Yeah, and I guess if operators can be more transparent with agents like you guys, that
Mhm.
helps you then communicate that to the customer even more and to the traveler, so that there's no surprises. And granted, things can change, like we're talking about, things can change overnight, but the more transparent you are, it's easier to do that than to have to backtrack and make the stay about service recovery from day one. It's much easier to start off on a high.
Absolutely. And those are the happiest travelers that we're seeing right now is kind of going back to that. The ones who know exactly, I need to be flexible.
Mhm.
There's going to be grace in this situation. We're going to run into people who don't know what they're doing because no one knows what they're doing right now, right? Everyone's just trying to navigate it and figure it out. And those are our happiest travelers. And we really are seeing a lot of people that are just thrilled to be back out there. They're having amazing times. And so I think that would be, I hope that none of this comes across as discouraging. I just want to, reality check
No.
on what travel looks like these days. But people are still out there traveling and really, really enjoying it. And it's really special to see because you don't take it for granted, right?
Yeah.
Like watching this world reopen is a beautiful thing and it's a scary thing at the same time, but people are able to get back out in the world and enjoy their travels, which is really special.
Yeah, I remember just seeing, people simply sitting at a restaurant and how good that felt just to see that again. So I think that's the kind of the area that we're merging back into. A beautiful way to end right on a high, and certainly motivating for a lot of operators. I know lots of calls to action and things they can do immediately that you've mentioned. And I think there's tremendous value in that. So yeah, thank you so much for this amazing insight. It's been absolutely fantastic. Before we wrap, any last notes you'd like to share?
Ah, man, thank you. This has been such a fun conversation. I used that word grace earlier, and I think that if we really think about like collectively as humanity right now, what we are going through, and the most overused phrase of everyone is in this together is still rings true, right?
Hmm.
Because we are all still navigating this. And so we see this as agents, we see this for our suppliers and our operators. The more grace and understanding we can extend to one another, and especially for operating from that transparency place, we know that the other one is doing the best that they can. We're giving them the benefit of the doubt there. The better travel experience and the better business experience every single person's going to have. So if I could leave everyone with one piece of advice, it's not just the flexibility piece, but it's like understanding what humans need right now, which is grace for each other.
Yeah, completely agree. Well said. And I think it leaves everyone with a large amount of hope. And hopefully we see this trend continue to move forward, like you're saying, and people can get out there and just enjoy what maybe they took advantage of before and
Yes.
took for
Yeah.
granted.
I'm so optimistic for that. I
Yeah,
mean, we're seeing it already. So
that's
so
true.
hold on tight because it's still a wild and crazy ride, but we're definitely seeing that happen now.
Yeah, absolutely. No, really well said. Thank you so much again for being here. The insights have been incredible, and I know there's a lot of value for those listening. So, Lindsey, thank you so much. It's been great to connect, and thanks for being on the episode.
Thank you for having me, Mark.
And to all of you, thank you so very much for watching this episode. Hopefully you took away a lot of information and a lot of perhaps new information. I know I certainly did, and I know that Lindsey has much more to share. So if you do have any more questions about what we spoke about today or looking for a little bit more in-depth conversation, please do feel free to reach out to either Lindsey or myself. Our LinkedIn is just in the description of this video. You can go ahead and reach out to us there, or alternatively, just go ahead and leave a comment and we'll start the conversation there as well. So please feel free if you have questions or you simply want to add to the conversation, that's the place to go and do it. But we'll bring this episode to a close right there. Again, thank you so very much for joining me on this episode. It's been fantastic having you. Wishing you a fantastic day in the world wherever you may be. And as always, stay happy, stay healthy. I'll see you on the next episode.